Hey! Hi, how you doing? This is Ryan and welcome back to the Gamertron Show. In this video, I would like to talk to you all about and argue against a very toxic perspective, mentality, and or trend, I guess you could describe it as. And that's the gaming community's obsession with player numbers. And I'm not just talking solely PvP multiplayer numbers, because that is important, and a statistic that should be noted, but I'm mostly referring to PvE games and single-player games here, and using the player numbers to judge the quality of said PvE co-op games and single-player games. Oh boy, and as disturbing as this mindset is, it's even more disturbing how widespread it is and how few people call out this rhetoric. Well, if no one else is going to do it, I guess I'll do it myself. So, to start off, let's begin with the basics. A video game's objective quality, whether a video game is good or bad, is not determined by the amount of people playing said video game at any given time. If your primary means of critiquing a game, judging a game, is based off player numbers, I have to say, mate, your priorities are fucked. Us normal people who live in reality, we're more concerned with a game's gameplay, its technical state, its story, the amount of content present, the quality of life and accessibility features, you know, shit that actually matters. How does a video game, single player, PvE, or even PvP, more enjoyable with 100,000 people playing at the same time, or 10,000 people playing it at the same time? What's the fucking difference? Oh right, there is none. It's just that this mindset, this perspective, is fucking diluted. It doesn't matter if there's 100 people playing Doom Eternal or 1,000, it's still the same great game. It doesn't matter if there's 1,000,000 people playing Monster Hunter World or 100,000, it's still the same great game. It doesn't matter if there's one single person playing Left 4 Dead at this very moment, or 10, or 10,000, it doesn't matter. The quality and craftsmanship of the product doesn't magically change. Video games are not defined by their player count. They never have been, and they never will be. With, of course, the exception of PvP multiplayer-only video games. But those types of video games rely on a player base to even be playable. That doesn't apply to PvE co-op games and single-player only games. It simply does not. And there's no amount of mental gymnastics you can perform to change this reality. Now I know, most reasonable, rational people, like yourselves, like you and me, already know this. You don't need to have this explained to you. But like I said earlier, we were starting with the basics. Now let's move on to some more advanced cancer. The most absolutely worthless criticism to make towards PvE co-op games and single-player only video games, the classic, quote-unquote, dead game. Ooh, this one really grinds my gears and boils my blood. Here we go. So apparently, in the heads of these deranged lunatics, if a video game, no matter if it's single-player, PvE, or PvP, if it has under 100,000 people playing it at any given time, it's a dead game. Unplayable. No one plays this game anymore. It's dead. Ooh. Okay, no, I'm not holding back for this one. If you say this shit, if you believe this shit, you're a fucking idiot. You're toxic, closed-minded, and you possibly need therapy. For instance, what is stopping me from playing and enjoying Warframe if it has over 30,000 people playing it or over 100,000 people playing it? I'm going to find other players to play with in co-op regardless if it's 30,000 or over 100,000. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect any player of this game whatsoever. It is a PvE co-op game that can also be experienced entirely in single player. So why should I, or anyone else, give a single flying fuck how many people are playing Warframe at any given time? If a normal co-op session in Warframe requires 1 to 4 players, and there's tens of thousands of people playing, or even just thousands of people playing at any given time, I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to find 3 other players to play with pretty easily. Now when it comes to Warframe specifically, the game has certainly had its ups and downs and things to be critical of. But if you've ever called Warframe a dead or dying game based on its player numbers, well, you're a clown, and I can't take you seriously. I also can't believe in 2021, coming up on 2022, it still needs to be said aloud that single-player video games cannot die. It is literally impossible. It's this kind of absurdity that drives me hysterical. Did you know? And I'm not making this up here. I'm not making this up. This is real. There are actual lunatics that have declared the game Subverse, the early access hentai game Subverse, is a dead game. Subverse, the single-player only porn game, is apparently dead, you guys. Unplayable. The single-player only game that doesn't have multiplayer. You can't make this shit up. There were those being critical of the game because its player count dropped after launch. The single-player hentai game Subverse. Oh my god, fucking gamers, man. Co-op games, let's talk more about co-op games. Deep Rock Galactic. Here's the Steam charts page for it. Its all-time peak was over 40,000 players. There's currently only over 10,000 people playing at any given time regularly now. Is the game dead? Is it unplayable? I mean, it never hit over 100,000 players, that coveted number. Your player count has to be in the 6 digits apparently, or else it's dead and unplayable. Even though a co-op session of Deep Rock Galactic is 1 to 4 players. But apparently, by gamer logic, if a game has only thousands of players, then those other free players you need to complete a co-op group just magically won't appear because there weren't thousands upon thousands of people playing this one video game at this particular time. Which leads us into the Kotaku article that helped spawn this video. 7 weeks after launch, fewer than 800 people are playing Aliens Fireteam Elite. Who gives a fuck, Zach Swisen? It's a co-op video game for 1 to 3 players. I think in that group of fewer than 800 players, I'm going to find 2 other people to play with. Or, God forbid, I play the game in single player. On top of all of that, Zach, this isn't a PvP game, this isn't a live service, it's a game with a beginning and an end. The majority of players played through the campaign from beginning to end, had their fun, had their fill, and moved on. What is wrong with that? Why are consumers obligated to interact with this one product forever? To have the player population retain this exact same high number for eternity? Else the product is deemed a fucking failure. You all know video games aren't meant to be played forever, right? And here we are, the title of the video. Video games aren't meant to be played forever, yet we have so many promoting this toxic mentality, this toxic perspective, that for some reason they should be. And if they're not, they're unsuccessful and failures and of a poor quality. Why are we trying to guilt and shame consumers into playing and or not playing certain video games? It's either you play a video game with a low player count, you're playing a dead game, ha, loser, or you've stopped playing a popular game to move on to something else because you're bored or just want to try something new, you've had your fill of the game, and now it's, oh, now there's less people playing this game, the game is dying, it's dead, it's a failure. You literally can't win with this toxic bullshit. Excuse the nerdy, geeky as hell Star Trek reference, but it's a Kobayashi Maru scenario. If you actually investigate this dumbass gamer logic, then by its own standards, every single video game that ever was or ever will be is a failure and a dead game. At that point, why are you even on the internet bitching about video games? Go watch Netflix or read a book or get into a sport. Because apparently, for you, there's never enough people at any given time wasting away their lives playing every single video game at the exact same time to satisfy you. I can't believe this needs to be said for some folks, but video games aren't meant to be played forever. People get bored of video games. They have their fill of one game, so they stop playing and move on to another. There are things, there are friends, there are family in people's lives more important than video games that require their time. It is not the fault of individual video games and their developers. People stop playing their video games and move on to other things. It's normal. It's healthy. That's life. And when it comes to multiplayer PvP only games, you cannot expect those titles to last forever, for people to play and maintain the player populations of those games forever. People are going to want to move on and play other games. Yes, there are less people playing Fall Guys and less people playing Among Us. They don't have the same player numbers they used to. They're still great video games, but people played them, had their fill of them, and they've moved on. It's up to the individual video game developers to find ways to preserve their games if they're multiplayer PvP only. It's why I argue developers shouldn't make multiplayer only games and should always have offline single player options even if your game is multiplayer PvP focused. But hey, that's up to the developers. They can make whatever video game they want to fucking make. It is not the responsibility of consumers and individual games multiplayer communities to keep these games alive forever. Multiplayer-only games lose players and sometimes, eventually, die and become unplayable. It happens! It's not the end of the world! The developers knew what they were getting into when they designed the game this way. Whew. Oh man, that was really vindicating. I'm glad I finally talked about all this and made a video about this. Video games aren't meant to be played forever, so please stop acting like they're supposed to. It's very toxic, as well as irrational and unrealistic. And just really stupid. Anyways, that's been a video. Thank you for watching. I hope you got some entertainment out of it. If you did indeed, please be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, share the video on social media, Twitter, Reddit, and Facebook if you want to help out and support the video. And if you want to help out and support me directly, there are links to my Patreon and my Ko-fi in the description down below. Anyways, once again, that's been a video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all later.